Hey everyone, welcome to today's explainer. Okay, I want you to picture your body for a second, not just as one single organism, but as a bustling microscopic city. And this city is populated by over 30 trillion workers. Now, in any thriving city, you can't just have a bunch of generic workers trying to do everything, right? You need highly specialized professionals. You need delivery drivers hauling supplies, electricians laying down complex wiring, and sanitation workers keeping the streets clean. Well, biology works exactly the same way. Every single cell in a complex living thing has a highly specific job to do and a completely unique physical shape to help it pull off that job. So today, we are heading to the cellular job fair to see exactly how this all works. Here's our quick roadmap for today. First, an intro to specialized cells. Next, we'll meet our animal workers, the delivery trucks, the cables, and the brooms. Then, we'll visit the plant world's sponges and solar panels. And finally, we'll wrap up with a practice quiz to test your knowledge. Let's dive right in. Starting off with Section 1, Intro to Specialized Cells, not just generic blobs. Because living things have amazingly complex needs, those basic generic cell shapes you learn about at first just can't do it all. To really wrap our heads around what we're talking about today, we need to lock down two foundational concepts: function and adapted. A cell's function is simply its job, its specific role in the organism. But to do that job well, a cell must be adapted. And what that means is it has a specific, unique physical structure that perfectly suits its function. Think of it exactly like tools in a toolbox. You wouldn't use a hammer to turn a screw, right? A cell's unique structure is the literal adaptation it needs to perform its function. Let's move into Section 2, Animal Cells, Delivery Trucks. Time to meet the very first members of our dynamic animal workforce. Say hello to the circulatory system's absolute MVP transport vehicle, the red blood cell. That distinct red color actually comes from a very special pigment filling up its cytoplasm called hemoglobin. These cellular delivery trucks use this hemoglobin to grab oxygen from your lungs and carry it to every single corner of your body. And they're tiny. I mean, they're way smaller than most other cells, which is an amazing feature because it allows them to squeeze right through your microscopic blood vessels called capillaries to make their deliveries. But here's what's truly fascinating. Think about the structural difference between a standard, generic animal cell and a red blood cell. A standard cell has a big nucleus taking up a ton of real estate right in the center. But the red blood cell, it has literally no nucleus at all. It actually ejects its nucleus as it develops. Why on earth would it do that? Well, getting rid of the nucleus clears out maximum cargo space for that hemoglobin, meaning the cell can carry a massive payload of oxygen. It is the ultimate example of form perfectly matching function. That brings us right to Section 3, Animal Cells, Cables, and Brooms. Let's look at two more incredible specialists. First up, the cables. This is a neuron, otherwise known as a nerve cell. Its main function is to carry electrical signals from one part of the body to another so all our different parts can talk to each other. See that incredibly long strand of cytoplasm stretching way out? That is called the axon. It acts literally like a long electrical wire, shooting signals lightning fast, say, carrying a message all the way from your brain down to make the muscles in your foot move. And speaking of muscles, they are specially adapted too, packing unique protein fibers that physically contract and pull your bones the second they get that message. The neuron also has these shorter branching strands called dendrites, and those basically act like tiny receiver antennas to collect electrical signals from neighboring nerve cells. Next, we have the cleanup crew, the ciliated cell. You'll find these guys lining the tubes that lead from your mouth down into your lungs. They have these microscopic hairs called cilia, and get this, they can actually move. So the lining of your airway naturally makes this sticky stuff called mucus, which acts almost like flypaper, trapping dust and bacteria from the air you breathe. The moving cilia act exactly like millions of tiny brooms, constantly sweeping and sweeping that dirty, sticky mucus all the way up to the back of your throat so you can swallow it. It's a brilliant system for keeping your lungs completely clean and safe. So what's the big takeaway here? It's how flawlessly each cell's physical shape solves a biological problem. Just look at how this summary pulls it all together. The red blood cell transports oxygen by packing itself with hemoglobin and entirely ditching its nucleus. The neuron carries rapid electrical signals by using a super long axon. And the ciliated cell moves mucus by weaving its microscopic sweeping hairs. They are all animal cells, right? But they look completely different from one another because their jobs are entirely different. Let's shift gears a bit in Section 4, plant cells, sponges, and solar panels, moving from the animal body to the botanical factory. Plants obviously don't have blood or brains, but they have their own vital life processes, which means they need their very own specialized workforce. Meet the sponge of the plant world, the root hair cell. Found right on the outside of plant roots, its main function is to eagerly absorb or soak up water from the surrounding soil. Instead of just being a standard, simple box shape, it actually has this incredibly long, thin extension poking right out of it. This brilliant adaptation vastly increases the overall surface area of the cell, and more surface area means water from the dirt can move much, much more easily into the cell's cytoplasm and its large vacuole. And up above ground, we have the solar panels, palisade cells. You'll find these hard workers up in the leaves. Their main function is to literally make food for the whole plant through photosynthesis. To pull this off, they are absolutely stuffed full of little green structures called chloroplasts. These chloroplasts contain chlorophyll, which acts exactly like a solar panel, absorbing energy directly from the sun to power the entire food-making process. This comparison perfectly illustrates the absolute core rule of specialization. Cells do not waste energy building tools they don't need. The palisade cell lives in the leaf, basking in the sun, so of course it's packed with chloroplasts to make food. But the root hair cell, it lives deep underground in pitch darkness. Sunlight can never reach it, so it doesn't bother making a single chloroplast. Its adaptation is entirely about stretching out to find water, while the leaf cell's adaptation is all about catching light. All right, it is time for Section 5, practice quiz time. Let's ramp up the energy and see how much of the cellular job fair actually stuck with you. I'm going to throw 3 quick questions your way based on what we just covered. See if you can shout out the answer before I reveal it. Ready? Let's do this. Question 1. List 2 things that red blood cells, neurons, and ciliated cells all have in common. Think back to our animal cell examples. Even though these cells are highly specialized and look incredibly different from each other, they all still belong to the same broad biological family. What basic cellular parts do they absolutely all share? The answer is, they all have a cell membrane and cytoplasm. If you got that, amazing job. Despite their wild, extreme specializations like totally losing a nucleus or growing a massive axon wire, they are all still foundational animal cells underneath it all, which means they're definitely enclosed by a cell membrane and filled with that jelly-like cytoplasm. Okay, question 2. Suggest why root hair cells do not contain chloroplasts. Think back to the plant comparison we just went through. Visualize where a root hair cell actually lives, and then remember what a chloroplast actually does for a living. And the answer is because they live deep underground, where there is absolutely no sunlight for chlorophyll to absorb. A cell is simply not going to waste its valuable energy building solar panels if it lives its entire life in total darkness. It adapts purely for its specific environment and its specific function. All right, question 3, and this is our final and definitely most challenging question. Water moves through several parts of the root hair cell as it goes from the soil into the sap vacuole. Can you list those parts in the exact correct order? Try to visualize that long extension of the root hair cell in your mind, starting from the total outside and moving layer by layer all the way to the very inside. Let's trace the path and see how this builds together step by step. The water starts completely outside in the soil. First, it crosses the tough outer plant cell wall. Next, it passes through the inner cell membrane. Then, it flows freely into the jelly-like cytoplasm. And finally, it arrives at its destination inside the large sap vacuole right at the center. If you trace that pathway correctly, you have an absolutely fantastic grasp of plant cell structure. Well, we've made it to the end, but I want to leave you with one final provocative thought exercise to take away from this explainer today. If you could act as the ultimate architect and design a brand new, never-before-seen specialized cell for the human body, what specific job would it do? And crucially, how exactly would its physical shape be adapted to pull off that new function perfectly? Would it have hooks for grabbing? Would it be shaped like a parachute? Think about it. The incredible, endless diversity of life is entirely driven by this one simple, unbreakable rule. Structure dictates function. Thank you so much for exploring the cellular job fair with me today, and keep questioning how the amazing microscopic world around you is built.